Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by telling you a simple truth. Silence is never just the absence of words. It is the presence of deep conclusions. When a woman stops speaking, she has made up her mind. Her silence is not weakness, it is a declaration. It is a verdict reached after careful thought, after patience has run its course, and after every opportunity for change has been exhausted. You see, God designed a woman to be a communicator. She was created to express, to nurture, to advise, and to counsel. A woman will talk because she cares. She will explain because she hopes. She will repeat herself because she believes change is possible. But the moment she falls silent, truly silent, it means something has shifted inside of her. It means she has taken the matter to her heart, and once a decision is sealed in the heart, it is final. Silence is never just the absence of words, it is the presence of deep conclusion. When a woman goes silent, it is not because she has nothing to say, but because she has already said everything that needed to be said. It is not emptiness, but rather the fullness of a decision that no longer requires explanation. Silence, in its truest form, is a final statement. A woman is naturally expressive. She was created to communicate, to nurture, to advise, and to counsel. She will talk because she cares. She will explain because she hopes. She will repeat herself because she believes change is possible. But there comes a point where her words no longer serve a purpose, and at that moment silence becomes her answer. It is not a temporary pause. It is a shift, a transformation, a turning point where she no longer sees the need to invest energy into a situation that does not honor her voice. Many misunderstand silence and assume it is passive, but true silence is filled with meaning. It is the conclusion of experiences, observations, and emotions that have all led to a firm decision. A woman does not fall silent overnight. It happens gradually as she measures her efforts against the responses she receives. She watches, she listens, she gives grace. But when she reaches the point where she no longer finds reason to speak, it is because her mind has settled, her heart has shifted, and her spirit has moved on. There is a difference between silence and absence. When a woman is absent, she may still be unsure, still contemplating her choices, still weighing the consequences of walking away. But when she is silent, she has already left in her heart. Her silence is not about seeking attention or forcing a reaction. It is the realization that she no longer needs to explain, request, or plead. She has understood that her words will not change the situation, and so she chooses instead to conserve her energy and direct it toward herself. Silence is a sign of self-respect. It is the moment when she stops fighting for someone to listen and instead chooses to listen to herself. It is when she acknowledges that her peace is worth more than the effort of trying to be understood. She may have once explained herself repeatedly, hoping for a breakthrough. She may have tried to make things work, believing that patience and persistence would lead to change. But when a woman goes silent, it means she has stopped hoping for a response. She no longer seeks validation, resolution, or reconciliation. She has accepted the reality before her and decided to move forward on her own terms. People often mistake silence for forgiveness or forgetfulness. They assume that just because a woman is no longer speaking about an issue, she has moved past it. But silence is not always an indication of peace. It is sometimes the strongest form of protest. It is a quiet but powerful declaration that says, "I am done." And once that decision is made, there is rarely a way to undo it. Understanding silence requires wisdom. It is a language spoken not with words but with action. It is not a request for attention but a reflection of an internal resolution. A wise person will recognize when silence arrives and will not wait until it is too late to understand its meaning. Because once a woman has decided in her heart, no amount of words can make her change her mind. A woman's voice is an expression of her heart. When she speaks, it is not just to fill the silence or to demand attention. It is because she cares. Her words are often rooted in love, concern, and a desire to nurture what is important to her. Whether she is offering advice, expressing frustration, or asking questions, she is doing so because she believes her voice has the power to bring understanding, healing, or change. When a woman speaks, it is because she values what she is addressing. She does not waste words on things that do not matter to her. If she corrects, it is because she sees potential. If she asks, it is because she desires connection. If she repeats herself, it is because she still believes something can be different. Her persistence is not a burden, it is a sign that she has not yet given up. A woman will argue, reason, and explain when she still has hope. She will offer patience when she believes something is worth fighting for. But the moment she no longer sees a purpose in speaking, it means something inside her has shifted. Many people mistake a woman's words for complaints, nagging, or unnecessary emotions, but in reality they are a reflection of investment. A woman will only invest her energy where she believes there is value. She will not waste her breath on something or someone she does not care about. She speaks because she wants to be understood, not to control or manipulate. She asks questions because she desires clarity, not because she is insecure. She offers guidance because she sees the bigger picture, not because she wants to criticize. Every word she speaks is an extension of her heart, and it carries weight. A woman's ability to communicate is one of her greatest strengths. It is how she builds relationships, how she expresses love, and how she protects those she cares about. If she challenges someone's actions, it is because she sees something they may not yet recognize. If she offers advice, it is because she wants to help prevent pain. If she expresses frustration, it is because she feels unheard, not because she wants to argue. Her words are filled with meaning, and those who take the time to listen will discover the depth of her wisdom and the sincerity of her intentions. When a woman is silent, it is not because she has nothing left to say. It is because she has realized her words are no longer being valued. She does not speak endlessly without purpose. She speaks with the hope that her voice will make a difference. But if she notices that her words are falling on deaf ears, she will eventually withdraw. Silence is not a sign that she no longer cares. It is a sign that she has accepted that her voice is no longer making an impact. And when that happens, it is often too late to regain what was lost. It is important to recognize the difference between noise and wisdom. A woman's words are not just sound. They are insight, intuition, and love in action. They are an opportunity to understand her heart and to strengthen the bond she shares with those around her. When she speaks, she is offering something valuable: her perspective, her emotions, and her understanding. Those who truly appreciate her will listen with an open heart and recognize that her words are not demands but gifts. The measure of a relationship, whether in friendship, family, or love, is often determined by how well a woman's voice is received. A man who values a woman's words will never have to wonder where he stands with her. A friend who listens will never have to question her loyalty. The moment a woman stops speaking is the moment her heart begins to detach. And that is why, as long as she speaks, there is still hope. Because when a woman speaks, it is always because she cares. Silence is not just an absence of words. It is a powerful statement that speaks louder than any argument, discussion, or plea. When a woman falls silent, it is not because she has nothing left to say, but because she has realized that speaking no longer serves a purpose. Her silence is not empty. It is full of meaning, conclusions, and finality. It is the moment when she decides that her energy is better spent elsewhere, that her voice no longer needs to be heard by those who have chosen not to listen. A woman's silence is not sudden. It is the result of many moments of being unheard, overlooked, or taken for granted. Before silence arrives, there were conversations filled with hope, explanations given with patience, and words spoken in love. She may have repeated herself, trying to make things work, hoping for understanding, believing in change. But when she realizes that her voice is no longer valued, she does what she must to protect her heart. She closes the door. That door does not slam shut in anger. It closes in quiet resolution. It is not a dramatic exit, but rather a final step in a process that has been unfolding over time. The sound of a closing door is not always loud. Sometimes it is the softest moment in a person's life, yet it carries the weight of an entire journey. It is the sound of acceptance, the acceptance that nothing more can be done, that nothing more needs to be said. People often misunderstand silence, assuming it means everything is fine or that feelings have faded. But silence is rarely a sign of peace. More often, it is a sign of distance. It is the space that forms when a woman decides that she will no longer pour herself into something that does not pour back into her. It is a declaration that she will no longer fight for something that does not fight for her. It is the realization that she has given enough, tried enough, and waited long enough. The danger of silence is that by the time it arrives, it is too late to reverse it. A woman who still speaks, even in frustration or disagreement, is still engaged. She is still present in the relationship, still holding on, still hoping for a resolution. But once she stops explaining, stops asking, stops seeking clarity, her heart has already left. The body may remain for a while, but her spirit has moved on. And once that shift happens, words can no longer bring her back. Silence is not a request for attention or a tactic for manipulation. It is not a test, nor is it a game. It is the final stage of a process that has been unfolding long before anyone noticed. It is the point where she no longer feels the need to defend herself, to justify her feelings, or to seek validation. It is the moment when she chooses peace over proving her point, self-respect over seeking approval, and closure over continuous disappointment. Those who understand the weight of silence know that it is not an opportunity to continue as if nothing has happened. It is a call to reflect, to acknowledge, to recognize what has been lost before it is truly gone. It is a chance to wake up and see what words fail to convey. Because once a woman closes the door and locks it with her silence, there is no key that can easily open it again. Those who fail to recognize the warning signs will find themselves standing on the other side, realizing too late that silence was not just an ending, it was the beginning of a life without them in it. Many men fail to realize the value of a woman's words while she is still speaking. They dismiss her concerns, overlook her emotions, and assume that she will always be there, always waiting, always forgiving. They hear her but do not truly listen. They acknowledge her presence but do not appreciate her essence. And so they move through life unaware that the very things they take for granted are the same things they will one day wish they had back. A woman does not wake up one day and decide to stop caring. A silence is not a sudden reaction, but a gradual response to being unheard, unseen, and unappreciated. She begins by expressing her needs, her desires, and her concerns, believing that her words will lead to change. She speaks with hope, trusting that if she explains herself enough, she will be understood. She gives grace, believing that patience will yield the love and respect she deserves. But when her words are ignored, when her feelings are minimized, when her efforts go unnoticed, something inside her begins to shift. At first, she will try harder. She will repeat herself, thinking that maybe she was unclear. She will adjust her tone, hoping that a softer approach will make a difference. She will compromise, even at the expense of her own happiness, believing that love requires sacrifice. But as time passes and nothing changes, she slowly begins to withdraw. She stops explaining, stops asking, stops expecting, and then, without warning, she is gone. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It is in this moment that many men wake up. They suddenly notice her absence. They suddenly feel the weight of her silence. They remember the warmth of her voice, the sincerity of her concern, the patience of her love. But by then it is too late. By the time they realize what they had, she has already moved on in her heart. By the time they want to listen, she no longer has anything left to say. Regret is a heavy burden to carry. A man who once took a woman's words lightly will find himself replaying her sentences in his mind, searching for the meaning he ignored when they were first spoken. He will remember the warning she gave, the love she showed, the time she tried to hold things together. He will wonder why he didn't cherish her when he had the chance. He will wish he had responded sooner, listened better, loved deeper, but life does not always offer second chances. Love is not something to be tested, assumed, or taken for granted. A woman's patience is strong, but it is not endless. A man who values a woman waits for neither silence nor absence to understand her worth. He listens while she is still speaking, appreciates while she is still giving, and nurtures the love before it begins to fade. Those who respond too late are left with nothing but memories and lessons learned in hindsight. They come to understand that love was never the problem, neglect was. The words they ignored were not complaints, but cries for connection. The silence they assumed was peace was actually the end. And the woman they believed would never leave had already walked away long before they noticed. A wise man understands that a woman's voice carries meaning. He knows that when she speaks, she is not simply filling the air with words, but revealing the depths of her heart, her concerns, her hopes, and her desires. He listens not just to respond, but to understand. He values her perspective, knowing that a woman does not speak without purpose. She communicates because she cares, because she sees something he may not yet recognize, because she is invested in the relationship and wants to see it thrive. Many men hear, but few truly listen. Some acknowledge a woman's words, but fail to take them seriously. They assume that her concerns are temporary, that her frustrations will pass, that her emotions are just a fleeting moment of expression. They nod absent-mindedly while she speaks, offering half-hearted responses that make her feel unheard. Over time, she begins to notice. She realizes that her words do not carry the weight they should, that her thoughts and feelings are not being absorbed. She starts to withdraw, slowly at first, then more noticeably, until eventually she stops speaking altogether. A wise man does not wait for silence before he begins to listen. He does not take a woman's patience as permission to neglect her voice. He understands that when she repeats herself, it is not because she enjoys arguing, but because she still has hope. She still believes in the possibility of change. She still believes that he has the ability to hear her and act on what she is saying. But that hope is not limitless. If ignored long enough, her persistence turns into quiet acceptance, and once she accepts that her words no longer matter, she will stop speaking altogether. Silence is a language of finality. When a woman stops speaking, it is not because she has nothing left to say, but because she has said everything she could and has now made a decision. A wise man never allows the woman he loves to reach this point. He does not let silence be the first sign that something is wrong. Instead, he listens while she is still speaking, while she is still explaining, while she is still asking for change. He understands that a woman who speaks is a woman who still cares. And as long as she cares, there is still an opportunity to strengthen the bond they share. A man who listens before it is too late values more than just words. He values the heart behind them. He does not dismiss emotions as unnecessary or inconvenient. He does not minimize concerns just because they do not immediately affect him. He listens with intention, knowing that in every conversation there is a deeper message, a request to be seen, to be understood, to be loved. He recognizes that what may seem small today can grow into something unrepairable tomorrow if left unaddressed. Many men only learn this lesson in hindsight, when they find themselves standing in the silence they once ignored, regretting the moments they could have listened but chose not to. They remember the times she tried to explain, the times she asked for their attention, the times she warned them of her growing distance. They replay conversations in their minds, now realizing the significance of what was once dismissed. But by then, the opportunity has passed. The time to listen was before she fell silent, before she decided that her words no longer held value, before she accepted that her voice was no longer needed. A wise man does not wait for regret to teach him what attentiveness could have shown him earlier. He listens when it matters, not when it is too late. He understands that love is not just about presence, but about engagement, about truly hearing the one he loves, about ensuring that she never has to question whether her words matter to him. Because once she does, silence will be the only answer left. Silence is often misunderstood. Many see it as weakness, as a lack of strength to confront issues, or as an avoidance of responsibility. But in reality, silence can be the greatest display of self-respect. It is not always about surrender. Sometimes it is about setting boundaries. When a woman chooses silence, it is not because she has nothing left to say, but because she has chosen to no longer waste her words where they are not valued. A woman who respects herself understands the power of her voice. She speaks when she believes her words will make a difference, when she still sees hope for change, when she still desires connection. She explains, she teaches, she pleads, not out of weakness, but out of care. But there comes a moment when she realizes that her words are falling on deaf ears, that she is being met with indifference, that she is repeating herself to someone who has no intention of listening. In that moment, she makes a decision not to argue, not to convince, but to walk away in silence. Silence is not defeat. It is not giving up. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. It is the recognition that a woman's time, energy, and emotions are precious and should not be wasted on those who do not appreciate them. It is a refusal to beg for love, for respect, for basic decency. It is a declaration that she will not continue to engage in a one-sided battle where she is the only one fighting. Instead, she chooses herself. A woman who has reached this level of self-respect understands that not every battle is worth fighting. She knows that silence speaks louder than any argument, that it carries more weight than repeated explanations. She no longer feels the need to defend herself against those who refuse to see her worth. She no longer seeks validation from those who have already made it clear that they will not give it. She no longer tries to fix what is beyond repair. Instead, she conserves her energy, redirects her focus, and prioritizes her own well-being. This kind of silence is not cold or bitter. It is not meant to hurt or punish anyone. It is simply the act of choosing peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, and wisdom over wasted effort. It is the realization that love should not have to be begged for, that respect should not have to be demanded, that understanding should not have to be forced. A woman who respects herself knows that she deserves better than to keep explaining the same thing to someone who refuses to listen. Many do not realize the meaning of a woman's silence until it is too late. They assume she will always be there, always trying, always fighting for the relationship. They mistake her past persistence for endless patience, but the moment she chooses silence, it means she has reached a conclusion. She is no longer hoping for change, no longer waiting for understanding, no longer seeking validation. She has accepted what is, and in that acceptance she has found her freedom. A woman's silence should never be taken lightly. It is not an empty space, but a filled one. A space now occupied by her self-worth, her peace, her healing. It is a boundary that says, I will no longer allow myself to be drained by what does not serve me. It is the understanding that love, in its truest form, does not require endless explanation. A woman who respects herself does not fear silence. She embraces it as a path to peace, knowing that the greatest strength sometimes lies not in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. Foundation of everything in life, it determines how people treat themselves, how they treat others, and how they allow others to treat them. When something is valuable, it is protected, cherished, and treated with care. When something lacks value in the eyes of others, it is neglected, taken for granted, and sometimes even discarded. The difference between being respected and being overlooked is often found in the perception of value. A person who understands their own value does not beg to be seen, to be loved, or to be appreciated. They do not lower themselves to fit into spaces that do not recognize their worth. They do not remain in situations where they are constantly overlooked. Instead, they position themselves in places where their presence is honored, where their contributions are acknowledged, and where their efforts are reciprocated. They do not need to demand respect because their self-awareness commands it. Many people make the mistake of trying to prove their value to those who refuse to see it. They overextend themselves, trying to earn love, attention, and validation from people who do not truly appreciate them. They exhaust their energy, hoping that if they give more, sacrifice more, or tolerate more, they will finally be acknowledged. But value is not something that is begged for. True worth is not proven through excessive effort. It is recognized by those who have the eyes to see it. The greatest mistake a person can make is placing their value in the hands of others. When worth is dependent on external validation, self-esteem rises and falls based on how people respond. If others affirm, confidence grows. If others ignore, doubt begins to settle in. But true power comes when value is no longer dictated by opinions, but by an internal understanding of worth. When a person knows their own value, they do not need constant reassurance. They do not chase after those who do not appreciate them. They do not settle for less than they deserve. Everything in life is treated based on its perceived value. A rare diamond is kept in a safe place, guarded with care, and admired for its uniqueness. A piece of glass mistaken for a diamond may be tossed aside, forgotten, or carelessly handled. But the value of the diamond does not change simply because someone fails to recognize it. It remains valuable regardless of who acknowledges it. The same is true for people. Those who understand their worth do not lose it just because someone fails to appreciate them. People who understand their value set standards. They do not tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or mistreatment. They do not compromise their self-respect for temporary acceptance. They walk away from places where they are undervalued and seek environments that reflect their worth. They understand that settling for less does not make them more lovable. It only teaches others that they are willing to accept less than they deserve. Value is also reflected in how a person treats others. Those who truly know their worth do not diminish others to feel superior. They do not compete out of insecurity. They uplift, encourage, and recognize the value in those around them. They do not feel threatened by someone else's success because they are secure in their own significance. True confidence is not loud arrogance, but quiet assurance. It does not seek to prove itself, it simply exists. A life built on the power of value is a life of strength, self-respect, and purpose. It is a life where people no longer settle for mediocrity, where they choose relationships that nurture rather than drain, and where they invest their time and energy in places that bring growth. Those who understand their value do not chase, they attract. They do not plead, they stand firm. And in doing so, they live a life that reflects the greatness they already carry within. Silence is never sudden. It does not appear without warning or without cause. It is not an impulsive reaction, but the final step in a long journey of being unheard, unappreciated, or misunderstood. Before silence arrives, there were words. Words filled with emotion, longing, and the hope that someone would listen, that something would change. There were conversations, explanations, and repeated attempts to bridge the gap. But when all of those efforts go unnoticed, when every spoken word is met with disregard, silence becomes the only option left. A woman does not fall silent because she has nothing left to say. She falls silent because she realizes that saying more will not make a difference. She understands that her voice no longer carries weight where it should, and instead of continuing to pour herself into empty spaces, she chooses to retreat. Silence is not weakness, it is clarity. It is the moment when she recognizes that no amount of speaking will create the change she desires. And so she lets go, not in anger, not in frustration, but in quiet acceptance. People often misunderstand silence. They mistake it for peace, thinking that as long as no words are spoken, everything must be fine. They assume that the absence of complaints means the absence of problems. But silence is rarely a sign of contentment. More often, it is a sign of emotional departure. A woman who is still speaking, even if she is upset, is still engaged. She is still trying. She still believes that something can be fixed. But once she stops talking, when she no longer explains or argues or asks questions, it means her heart has already left. Silence is not a tactic or a game. It is not a test to see if someone will chase after her. It is not a temporary pause, waiting to be broken by the right words. Once silence arrives, it is final. It means she has stopped expecting, stopped hoping, stopped waiting for things to be different. It means she has accepted reality and has chosen to move forward without the burden of trying to make someone understand what they have repeatedly ignored. Many only recognize the power of silence when it is too late. They realize in the emptiness of unanswered messages and unreturned calls that the voice they once took for granted is now gone. They begin to remember all the times she tried to reach them, all the moments she gave them a chance to hear her, to understand her, to make things right. But by the time they want to listen, there is nothing left to hear. By the time they see her silence as a warning, she has already closed the door. Regret is the price of ignoring someone when they were still speaking. Those who assumed she would always keep trying, always keep explaining, always keep waiting, find themselves standing in the aftermath of their own neglect. They search for words to bring her back, but there are none. Because silence, once it takes hold, does not reopen doors. It does not reopen doors that were closed with finality. A woman's silence is not meant to punish or hurt. It is not an act of cruelty. It is simply a realization that her words no longer belong where they are not valued. It is an act of self-respect, of choosing peace over exhaustion, of walking away from what no longer serves her. And when she reaches this point, when silence replaces the voice that once filled the space, there is no reversing it. The decision has been made. And once silence arrives, it stays.